Hi, Laura.
Hi, Elise.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You're just the best. I always have, for everyone watching, I always have like the biggest smile on my face when I'm talking to Laura because she's just like, light just pours from her soul. So I'm excited that everybody gets to meet you because you are just the best. Everyone watching, this is Laura. She is my client, so you guys will get to see how our relationship is. Laura and I are friends outside of Blush. Our relationship has really bloomed into something beautiful. We're in the
hmm
same book club together. We just love each other so much. So I'm excited for everybody to kind of hear about your experience with Blush and hear about your perspective on our relationship because I'm sure everybody watching can already tell how obsessed I am with you. Um,
Aw.
so let's just jump right in. So, why did you decide to join Blush in the first place? And you can be as specific or as general as you want, Laura.
Okay, so I think it was like late last fall, I knew that I've been doing a lot of work on myself by myself, and I knew that I had wanted to get involved with therapy again. I've been in and out of therapy my entire life, and I probably in and out because of the fact of how much I've moved around in my life. And so when I had heard about some other apps that were like online or virtual therapy, and I had never really looked into them. And then I was doing this other program, and one of the women in that program very much suggested join Blush, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it out. And I know that I reached out to Callie to begin with because one of my big issues with therapy is that and I'm not saying it's all because of my therapist, like I've told you before, is that like I feel like it's a lot of I'm a very like self-aware person, but it's because like I only open up to my therapist typically about what I already know. I have an issue, like I've already like mulled over the issue in my head, and so that's what I tell them. And they're like, "So you seem like very self-aware," and it's like, yeah, but I'm no, like I never get anywhere, and I don't know really why, but that definitely is something that has changed with Blush, probably because I've like really opened up to you. Like I don't know how many times I've been like, okay, this is what's really going on right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that I mean, how many times have you heard that you're self aware? But to be able to recognize that there might be some like underlying self sabotaging underneath where you're like, okay, I'm just going to present what I'm comfortable presenting, right? But sometimes it's important to like dig a little bit deeper. And I think you're so spot on with that. Like you have to have that relationship established and that safety and security established and really feel like that person gets you and that you can open up and be in a safe space, which I think we've definitely accomplished over the time that we worked together. Um,
Yeah.
so, what did you initially hope to get out of life coaching?
Um, I just know that I couldn't. You know that I'm on a pretty big journey of self development and self improvement and all those things. And I know that I have some issues, underlying issues from childhood and all that stuff that is all intertwined into why I'm having probably issues in my relationships is probably the key reason why I joined. Is like I think it was shortly after my last like realization. I was like, you're just like literally chasing your tail in circles in these relationships you're getting into. And I had recognized that I needed to like take a break in general, but at the same time, like to make that time productive, I also needed help making that time productive because it's a lot of, I feel like when you really start looking at failed relationships, it's hard work. But then on top of that, like looking at it from the frame of what was I causing? Like, how was I showing up, like encouraging this behavior? And in my case, I know for me, it was like, how was I not showing up for myself? And
Mm,
those are hard topics to like reach, especially if you're trying to do it by yourself.
totally. I completely agree with you 100%. Okay, so what do you like most about Blush or working with me or life coaching in general?
So I like most you. But the funny thing is that I probably honestly like most about blush is the texting option, because I don't know how long like Callie kept suggesting it, because I kept letting my like video sessions like lapse, and she kept being like, why don't you try out this option? And I kept being like, no. And then finally, I think the last time she offered it, I just like, fine, whatever. And I tried it. And it's been so helpful to me because of the fact of, and this may not be how it works for everyone, but for me, like when I was in the issue and in the problem, I could message you right away and send it. So when I was in all the emotions, like it's like sending that angry text to your ex. Like you want to do it when you're having all like you're sitting there bawling on the floor, but you like, no, you shouldn't, so you delete it. But it's like okay to send it to you and be like, I know I need to work on this.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's so helpful for me, especially because, or for anyone who has these low moments, but then doesn't bring them up when they're like in a session. You know what I mean? Because once you send it, it's not like I can be like, just kidding, I wasn't feeling like that.
Yeah, I'm like, let's go back to this. I think you're so right. I think, we can have a moment where a lot of stuff comes up, and I think that's really important to share that while you're in that headspace, because the next morning you might wake up and be like, okay, today's a new day. I'm, moving forward. Let's be positive. Let's focus on goals. But you very much have to work through and process through that stuff too. So I think that I love that perspective and that point that you make. Okay, next question. How would you describe your relationship with your blush life coach?
Besties.
Yes.
And I think that's another thing, the reason why I love blush so much is because in traditional therapy, it's a lot of authoritative figures, and I don't feel like that's helpful for me, because having an authoritative figure, I don't want to admit that I have like my downfalls, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Whereas like if it's like a bestie situation, it's more of an open conversation, you know what I mean? So,
and I think it's cool too, because like I also like, we're in the same life stage, so the things that you're working through or are wanting to work through, like I am very much in the same life stage doing that same stuff. So I think the fact that we have this universal experience and this shared experience, you can be like, oh my gosh, this was hard that this moment. And I can be like, oh my God, me too, and I think that is an extra layer that you might not necessarily get in like a clinical setting at like a therapist's office or with varying ages and things like that. So I think that that's really cool.
Yeah, I think especially just to like add to that is just that, I mean, they're supposed to have a professional relationship with you, like a very professional, like they're not supposed to tell you anything going on in their lives. Like it's part of the rules, I'm pretty sure, of therapy.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like it builds the connection. So it builds a more open, available communication, for me at least.
Totally. And I think it's cool to see, I mean, obviously everybody watching this can tell that like Laura and I are very much friends. Like it's not just something that is a job for me, like it's, as you start to share things about your lives and you connect on different experiences that you've had that are shared, like you build that relationship, and that just doesn't go away. Like it continues to build and build and build. And, like I love Laura with all my soul. And I, like it's cool to have that aspect of it where you really do. I mean, I always say finding a therapist or finding a life coach is really like finding a new best friend, because in order for you to get to where you want to go, you have to feel understood. You have to feel safe. You have to feel like somebody gets you. And that's what you get at Blush, right? We have such a diverse group of women as our coaches. And I think for anyone, you will be able to find someone at Blush who really resonates with you and your experience in the world. So love it. Okay, so what role does your life coach play in your life?
Well, as I said, you're already a friend. But I think it's nice because a lot of times you open up to friends and then sometimes they just validate your feelings, and they don't look at it from all angles, and they're not like, I don't know. I feel it's different because it's like I know I'm coming to you and I'm like I need help, and I know that it's not just going to be like you agreeing with me. I can look at it more objectively when I talk to you about it, as opposed to like you could literally say the exact same thing that a good friend will say, but because you're the life coach therapist, I'm like, yeah, but she actually has my best interests at heart, and you're trying to be mean.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know what I mean?
that's that piece of like that external third neutral party, right? Like I don't have connections to your job or your friend group or your family. You know, like I am a separate entity in your life, and we have created this very sacred space between the two of us. And so we can come to this space and do what we need to do. But then, you know, it's very much different. So I totally understand that. Okay, what benefits have you gotten out of the process so far?
Um, Definitely working through some of my relationship issues. In the sense of like me working on myself, but also like, I mean, we were just talking about today, like working on relationships, which is something I've always wanted, but I don't feel like I feel like I've been falling for the same thing since, I mean, I started dating, which is somewhat sad, but it's true. And I say that's a big thing I've gotten out of it. And then also just having like a friend who I feel is on a same path, and like just like inspiring women, encouraging women, like being women's biggest cheerleader. And I know that's something that I've been looking for a long time. Maybe not subconsciously, but then like very consciously over the past like year to 2 years. And you have 100% like been that person. Like you're the best friend I never knew I wanted, like in college.
That's so sweet. That literally like makes me teary-eyed. And I think like it's so helpful to just have someone in your life who like believes in you wholeheartedly. Like, you know, when you talked about, and I know you won't mind me sharing this, but when you talked about wanting to start this book club or wanting to start your blog, and I think initially when you start anything new, your critic in your mind is like, with everybody, right? Like, maybe this isn't a good idea. What happens if it goes bad? And you kind of have that self doubt. But it's nice to have someone to just be like, Laura, you got this. You said you wanted to do it. We're going to do it. And look, and now you have a beautiful blog, which I want you to talk about. And you started this amazing book club, which I actually get to be a part of, and I felt so special that I got that invitation. But tell about your blog and this book club, because I feel like those were really like me as your life coach on the sidelines. I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing, you know?
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, I will say that also you giving that support is something that's so necessary, because I feel that I feel like as a like some of my friends, and I don't want to say this out loud or on video, but I like some of my friends aren't as supportive. Like some of my friends who are my best friends who I've had for a really long time, they're like, with my blog, you know, I started this blog and I didn't know what I want. Like I didn't want to put it into a category. And I was like, just want to talk about my life. And they're like, well, what do you mean you just want to talk about your life? I'm like, I want to have like conversations, or like talk about conversations that I've either had with other women, or like issues I've worked through, how I've worked through them, and stuff like that. And I think that it's relevant conversations because they're conversations I feel that I've had, or experiences I've been there, that either I needed somebody to be like, oh my gosh, me too, or I've opened up to a friend about the situation and they're like, yeah, 100% me too. And it's like, I feel like there's just in tough situations, for example, like when my parents got divorced when I was 31, so like a year ago, being in that situation is just really hard. And then on top of it, like losing my relationship with my father and like having to regrow that is even tougher. And it's just like, it's not an everyday situation, but I know, and I haven't really had necessarily had a friend who's been like, yeah, me too with that. But it's like there's somebody out there who is going through that and can read my blog and be like, oh my gosh, this girl feels the same way I do. Because there's just so much, you feel so guilty about it. Like, because you're like, I love this person unconditionally, but they're not showing up to the agreements that we've had in our relationship up to this point. And so it's just, they're really hard conversations. And I don't think that they fit into a nice, neat little box, because I don't think life fits into a nice, neat little box. And maybe, that means less people come and look at my blog initially, but I feel that the people who do come and look at it and really resonate with it are going to be loyal to it. And that's what I want anyways. But yeah, and honestly, to be honest, one of the other things is like, I probably haven't started this blog for the past 10 years of my life because I didn't know I didn't have a category of a blog I wanted to put it into. And so I didn't start it, so it stopped me from starting it. And it's like, well, if I just stop trying to define it because somebody else is telling me I need to define it for them and not for me, then I should just do it and not define it. Because let's be real, how many times have you looked up a fucking cookie recipe? Sorry for dropping cuss words excessively. A cookie recipe, and you get this woman's like play-by-play of the last 2 weeks of her life, and it's like, I just want to know how to make these cookies. Like, I don't, like, no offense, like, that's great, but I don't really need to know like what your 2-year-old is doing. I want to know how to make oatmeal chocolate chip cookies and how bomb they were. Like, and I need to know the ingredients because I gotta go to the store. So yeah. I'm not trying to hide my life advice in a cookie recipe, basically.
Yes, totally. And I think, as you talk and as, because I got to be part of this from the initial stages of like, okay, I think I want to start a blog, to like, okay, we're doing this and we're doing it now. And I think, what's that quote that's like, your hard times and your vulnerability becomes a playbook or a survival guide for other people. Mm-hmm. And I love that quote because I think, in this day and age, when you hear people saying like, oh, I want to start a blog or I want to do this, like, and it's a fashion blog or it's a recipe blog or whatever, like those are amazing and there's a need for them for sure. But I think the fact that you're stepping forward and really being vulnerable with yourself and your life and saying, I wish at this point in my life I had this exact blog to give me just validation, to give me support, for me to feel like I'm not alone in this. And that's your driving force, is to make sure that other people feel okay when they're going through difficult times too. And that's a really beautiful thing,
Thanks.
And talk about quickly your book club, because this was one of the moments, this was a self-limiting belief that you had carried on for your entire life, and we killed it.
So literally, not only would I, like, if you would have asked me, I would say even a year ago, if I would have been a part of a book club, I would have been like, no, this girl is not book club material. And that stemmed from, I was good at science and math and I wasn't good at English and reading all throughout my life. And in reality, it's just that I was average at English and reading, and I was excelled at math and science. So like, I feel like for a lot of kids, like instead of pushing them forward, they, on like their strong suits are like weaknesses, they like work on your strong suits. And so I was like, yeah, I'm just not a reader. And the other thing is like, I feel that so many people were really only giving me like novels to read. And they're like, oh, like this novel is fantastic. And I'm like, if I want to escape into something, like I'll go watch a movie. Like I'll go veg out on the couch. Like, no offense, like to me, like I do have some dyslexia. I am not a fast reader. And so that's probably adds to like the whole, like, I'm not a good reader or whatever. And so if I get bored in a book, I literally just put it down. I'm like, yeah, we're done here. And so, but then I started really diving into fiction, not like books. That's fiction is real life, right? Okay. Yeah. See, I don't even. I
think
that trips me out.
We'll go with it.
Self-development, basically. I've been like some of the, like, I know like one of the first ones I read was You Are a Badass. And that book kind of got me started. And then I read one by Moxie McCoy, like You Are Not Lost. And I just started reading them, and I was like, these are the kinds of things that help me. And I know, and if I'm going to read, I want it to be beneficial to me. Like I want it to get me through something. And so and then was starting the book club. I was just having these conversations, and I was meeting these women who wanted these similar connections that I wanted. And thanks to Glennon Doyle and her lovely Untamed book, bringing me together with some of these lovely ladies. And I was like, well, why don't I start a book club? And it's so funny because I feel like the only real thing I've done with this book club is like connect everybody. Like you've helped with like making it a safe space and like the therapy aspects kind of it. And then one of our other friends, like she's really helped with the structure, because if it wasn't for her, we'd be like, so yeah, we're gonna read these topics, maybe, I don't remember.
No, but I love it. I think that you've really, without you, the book club wouldn't be a thing, and I think that to have that self-limiting belief of like, I'm not good at reading, I could never be in a book club, to getting to the point where you're starting your own dang book club, like that is huge, and that's such a milestone. And so I just wanted to point those two things out and tell everybody the name of your blog, because it's truly amazing and everybody should go check it
out. The website it's just ellis.com, and the tagline is leveling up through loneliness. That is my tagline because I have battled some depression in my life, and that's where I feel that I got to the point where I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with the bullshit. I'm done with all of it. And I'm going to really start I think I had a victim mentality at that point. Like I was like, oh, poor pitiful me kind of thing. And I was like, I'm done playing the poor pitiful me game, and I'm going to start taking control over what I'm doing. So that was probably the loneliest time in my life. And I know lonely is a really tough place to be because of that time in my life. And I wanted to start a blog so that way nobody else would ever feel alone again.
So sweet. That just goes to show how big Laura's heart is. She's literally the sweetest. Okay, so you kind of already touched on this, but what are we currently working on?
Me, and why I pick terrible men to be in relationships with. Really, I just pick men who are avoidant. Like that's just what I love. I love avoidant men. They're just something about them.
Girl, we've all been there. I was a magnet for narcissists for like 10 years of my life. And then thank the Lord, I found my husband who's just an amazing person. But it's true. We have patterns. Those patterns get associated with behaviors. We attract the same thing because of all of these different things. So I love that we are working through that because it's important work to do, Okay, so who do you think would be a good candidate for life coaching and for Blush?
I think that if anybody has ever tried, I honestly think it's good for anybody who's tried therapy before and just never seriously, it was kind of in my spot, like just never seriously resonated with a therapist, because it is a lot stiffer, and I'm just not a stiff person. Like I'm very laid back. And also the thing is like, you're not trying to beat out of me some of my issues. Like I am at a point where I'm like I'm ready to talk about them, and I want to talk about them. So if you're at that point, like I think Blush would be amazing. And then just for anybody who hasn't done therapy before, because of the fact that it's so, it is such a low investment, low risk type situation in my mind. Like going to a traditional therapy is so, like, you first have to make the decision, and then you first have to find the doctor, and then you have to see if they take your insurance, and then you have to make the appointment, and then you actually have to show up for the appointment. You know what I mean? And then you may have to tell work that you're going to therapy. And then there's that stigma of you're going to therapy that some people can't handle, or I know, I was forced into therapy because of my family events in my life, but so that's where I kind of got over that stigma. But I know that I've had some friends who they're just like, oh, that's good that you need therapy, and I'm just like, girlfriend, listen, all of us need some fucking therapy. Like,
everybody could benefit from having a supportive, non-biased, neutral, encouraging, empowering person in their life. If anyone says no thanks to that, I'm like, you're lying to yourself, because it's true, And I don't think it ever ends too. Like, I think you get to a point where you feel like, okay, life is good. I've really challenged all these things that are no longer serving me. I've cut the cord on things that are no longer serving me. But life happens, right? And things pop up randomly. And I don't care how great things are, but it's always nice to have just someone that like, okay, shoot, I was doing really good for 3 months and I just had a really bad day, so let me reach out to this person who I know has my back and my best interest at heart,
Yeah.
Okay, last 2 questions. What is one thing, if you can point out, that you've learned from the life coaching process?
It is different than traditional therapy. I know that was something that was like my main question I asked Callie, is if it was different, and because I was worried about it.
Yeah,
being different, and I know it's been different, and I honestly think that, one, you're probably the longest person I've gone to therapy with, or been, I don't know what you call it. I still call it therapy in my mind because I don't have a problem calling it therapy. But you're the longest consistent person I've stayed as like in this relationship with, and because of that, I just think that we've actually dug through some issues that either time wise or my connection level with the other people that I've tried it with just hasn't worked. Mm-hmm. And so I know that's my biggest benefit, is like it actually like diving in and doing the work. And it's such a hard time to actually really dive in and do the work. Not hard time, but like I'm actually trying to do the work. Yeah. I feel like we go through these, like, we go through like 2 to 3 week spans of like, Laura has a real big issue, and then I'm like, and then we kind of work through it, and then maybe for like 5 to 7 days I'm all right, and then all of a sudden like something else comes up, and it's just like,
and that's life. It's like it's so like so perfect for just what life is. I think everybody listening right now can probably resonate to that and be like, yeah, that's me too, I love it. Okay, last question. I'm sad because I don't want this to end because I just love you. But what advice would you give to someone who is considering joining Blush or just starting out?
I would just say, just do it. I mean, it can be scary, and especially, I mean, I feel like some mental health issues have gotten, or dealing with therapy or whatever has gotten less stigmatic in our society, but just try it, and like, I would say give it a good college try, like 6 months at least, and see how it goes, and be really open and honest with who the life coach you end up with, and be really open and honest with yourself. And if you even can't, like, if you're not driving with them, like, switch, like, try out a different one. And and if you don't, you could feel guilty or whatever, but I almost guarantee you any of the life coaches are not going to feel bad, like be mad or feel upset. And even if they do, like, you don't even have to tell them. You can just tell Callie, I'm sure, and she'll be like, yeah, we'll figure this out, Yeah.
Well, the whole thing, I mean, all of our entire team, like, this is y'all's process. So whatever's going to be best for the client and whatever's going to get the most progress and be the most beneficial for that person, like, that's ultimately what we want, And so I think that's a good point, if you do, which, I mean, now our system is set up so that when you do sign up, you can have a chance to look through all of the coaches and see what their specialties are and really choose to see kind of who you vibe with. But in the off chance that you start and you don't feel like you're really vibing with that coach, or, you have different personality preferences or whatever, like, that's why we have such a diverse group of women as coaches, because there will always be someone for you. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Okay, well, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this. You are just such a light in this life, and I'm just so honored that I get to be part of your journey. So thank you so much. And I'll talk to you later, Laura.
Okay, bye.
Bye.